Metroid Prime is a 2002 action-adventure game developed by Retro Studios and published by Nintendo for the Gamecube. It is the fifth main installment in the Metroid franchise. It was the first Metroid game to use 3D computer graphics and a first-person perspective. It was released in North America in November 2002 and in Japan and Europe the following year. Along with the Game Boy Advance game Metroid Fusion, Prime marked the return of the Metroid series after an 8-year hiatus following Super Metroid in 1994. Metroid Prime takes place shortly after the events of the original Metroid. Players control the bounty hunter, Samus Aran, as she battles the space pirates and their biological experiments on the planet Talon 4. Metroid Prime was a collaboration between Retro in Austin, Texas, and Japanese Nintendo employees, including producers Shigeru Miyamoto and Kensuke Tanabe. Miyamoto suggested the project after visiting Retro's headquarters in 2000. Since exploration takes precedence over combat, Nintendo described the game as a first-person adventure rather than a first-person shooter. Metroid Prime sold more than 2.8 million copies worldwide. It won a number of Game of the Year awards and was regarded by many as one of the greatest video games, remaining one of the highest-rated games on Metacritic. Metroid Prime was followed by Metroid Prime 2 Echoes in 2004, Metroid Prime 3 Corruption in 2007, and Metroid Prime 4 Beyond in 2025. In 2009, an enhanced version of Metroid Prime was released for the Wii in Japan and is part of the Metroid Prime Trilogy compilation internationally. A remastered version was released on the Nintendo Switch in 2023. Gameplay. Metroid Prime is an action-adventure game in which players control protagonist Samus Aran from a first-person perspective, unlike previous games in the Metroid series, with third-person elements used for Morph Ball mode. The gameplay involves solving puzzles to reveal secrets, platform jumping, and shooting foes with the help of a lock-on mechanism that allows circle strafing, while staying aimed at the enemy. Samus must travel through the world of Talon 4, searching for 12 Chozo artifacts that will open the path to the Phazon Meteor Impact Crater, while collecting power-ups that let her reach new areas. The Varia suit, for example, protects Samus against high temperatures, allowing her to enter volcanic regions. Some items are obtained after boss fights. Items must be collected in a specific order. For example, players cannot access certain areas until they find a certain beam to open doors, or discover new ordnance with which to beat bosses. Players are incentivized to explore to find upgrades that increase Samus's maximum ammunition and health. The heads-up display, which simulates the inside of Samus's helmet, features a radar display, a map, ammunition for missiles, a health meter, a danger meter for negotiating hazardous landscape or materials, and a health bar and name display for bosses. The display can be altered by exchanging visors. One uses thermal imaging, another has X-ray vision, and another features a scanner that searches for enemy weaknesses and interfaces with mechanisms such as force fields and elevators. The game introduces a hint system that provides the player with clues about ways to progress through the game. By connecting Prime with Metroid Fusion using a Game Boy Gamecube Advance Link cable, players can unlock Samus Fusion suit and an emulated version of the original Metroid game. Items. Throughout the game, players must find and collect items that improve Samus's arsenal and suit, including weapons, armor upgrades for Samus' power suit, and items that grant abilities, including the Morph Ball, which allows Samus to compress herself into a ball in order to roll into narrow passages and drop energy bombs, and the Grapple Beam, which works by latching onto special hooks called grapple nodes, allowing Samus to swing across gaps. Unlike those in earlier games in the series, the beam weapons in Metroid Prime have no stacking ability in which the traits of each beam merge. Instead, the player must cycle the 4 beam weapons. There are charge combos with radically different effects for each. Other upgrades include boots that allow Samus to double jump, and a spider ball upgrade that allows her to climb magnetic rails. Items from previous Metroid games appear with altered functions. Art galleries and additional ending cutscenes are unlockable if the player collects a high percentage of items and scan visor logs. Prime is one of the first Metroid games to address the reason Samus does not start with power-ups acquired in previous games. She begins the game with some upgrades, including the Various Suit, missiles, and grapple beam, but they are lost during an explosion on the space pirate frigate Orpheon. The producer stated that the starting with some power-ups was a way to give the player different things to do and to learn the functions of these items before setting into the core gameplay. Game plot. Setting. Retro Studios wrote an extensive storyline for Metroid Prime, a major difference from previous Metroid games. Short cutscenes appear before important battles, and a scanner in the heads-up display extracts backstory-related information from objects. The first 3 Metroid Prime games take place between Metroid and Metroid 2, with Metroid Prime 4 Beyond takes place between Metroid Other M and Metroid Fusion. The game takes place on the planet Talon 4, formerly inhabited by the Chozo race. 5 decades ago, the Chozo race fell after a meteor impacted on Talon 4. The meteor contaminated the planet with a corruptive, mutagenic substance that the space pirates later named Phazon, and also brought with it a creature known to Chozo as the Worm. A large containment field emitter of the artifact temple in the Talon overworld area was built as a seal to the meteor's energies and influence within the crater where it landed, which the space pirates attempt to disable or bypass in order to gain better access to extract the Phazon. The containment field is controlled by 12 Chozo artifacts that are scattered around the planet. Game story. Not long after defeating Mother Brain and space pirate forces on the planet Zebes, Samus Aran intercepts a distress signal from the space pirate frigate Orpheon, whose crew have been slaughtered by the pirates' own genetically modified experimental subjects using a mysterious radioactive substance called Phazon. At the ship's core, she battles with the Parasite Queen, a giant version of the tiny parasites around the ship. The Parasite Queen is defeated and falls into the ship's reactor core, initiating the destruction of the ship. While Samus is escaping from the frigate, she encounters a cybernetic version of Ridley called Meta Ridley, who also escapes. During her escape, an explosion damages Samus' suit, causing some of her abilities to malfunction. Samus escapes the frigate and chases Ridley in her gunship towards the nearby planet Talon 4. After landing in the Talon overworld, Samus explores nearby areas of Talon 4 and discovers ruins of an ancient Chozo settlement. As she explores the ruins, she learns that the Chozo on the planet had been killed off by the Phazon infesting the planet, which originated from a meteor that impacted on the planet many years ago. After regaining her lost abilities in the ruins, as well as defeating a mutated plant creature that was poisoning the local water supply, Samus finds her way to the Magmore Caverns, a series of magma-filled tunnels, which are used by the space pirates as a source of geothermal power. Following the tunnels, Samus travels to the Phendrana Drifts, a cold mountainous region which is home to another ancient Chozo ruin and a space pirate research laboratory, Glacial 1, used to study the Metroids. After obtaining new abilities, Samus explores the wreckage of the crashed Orpheon and then infiltrates the Phazon mines, where she learns the outcome of the Phazon experimentation project, including the Metroid Prime, a creature that had come to Talon 4 with the meteor. Advancing deeper into the mine, Samus fights her way through the Phazon-enhanced space pirates and obtains the Phazon suit after defeating the monstrous Omega Pirate. At some point, Samus discovers the artifact temple that the Chozo built to contain the Metroid Prime and to stop the Phazon from spreading over the planet. To gain access to the meteor's impact crater, Samus must collect and unite the 12 Chozo artifacts. As Samus returns to the temple with the artifacts, Meta Ridley appears and attacks her. Samus defeats Ridley and enters the impact crater, where she finds the Metroid Prime. After she defeats it, the Metroid Prime absorbs Samus' Phazon suit and explodes. Samus escapes the collapsing crater and leaves Talon 4 in her ship. If the player completes the game with all the items obtained, Metroid Prime reconstructs itself into a body resembling Samus. Development. According to producer Shigeru Miyamoto, Nintendo did not develop a Metroid game for the Nintendo 64 as the company couldn't come out with any concrete ideas. Metroid co-creator Yoshio Sakamoto said he could not imagine how the Nintendo 64 controller could be used to control Samus. Nintendo approached another company to make Metroid for Nintendo 64, but the offer was declined, supposedly because the developers thought they could not equal Super Metroid. Metroid Prime was a collaboration between Nintendo EAD and R&D1 and the American company Retro Studios. Retro was created in 1998 by an alliance between Nintendo and Iguana Entertainment founder Jeff Spangenberg. The studio would create games for the forthcoming GameCube targeted at a mature demographic. After establishing its offices in Austin, Texas in 1999, Retro worked on 4 GameCube projects. When Miyamoto visited Retro in 2000, he suggested a new Metroid game after seeing their prototype first-person shooter engine. In 2000 and early 2001, 4 games in development at Retro were canceled, including an RPG, Ravenblade, leaving Prime the only game in development. During the last 9 months of development, Retro staff worked 80 to 100-hour weeks to reach Nintendo's deadline. According to senior artist James Dargy, it took them almost 6 months to do the first level that Nintendo approved, and then they had less than a year to do the rest of the game. Concept artist Android Jones, a lifelong fan of the series, whose work included Samus's various suit and most of the art in the scan visor, would sleep in the office and resume working when he woke up. Nintendo created the music, Retro handled art and engineering, and both teams worked on the overall design. The Japanese crew, which included producers Miyamoto, Kensuke Tanabe, Kenji Miki, and designer and Metroid co-creator Sakamoto, communicated with Retro through emails, telephone conferences, and personal gatherings. The game was planned to use a third-person perspective, but Miyamoto intervened. This was changed to first-person perspective, and almost everything already developed was scrapped. The change was prompted by camera problems experienced by Rare, which was developing the Nintendo 64 game Jet Force Gemini. According to director Mark Pacini, Miyamoto believed that shooting in third person was not very intuitive. Pacini also said that the exploration is easier using first person. Pacini said that after picking that perspective, the crew decided not to make a traditional first person shooter. Instead, they had to break down the stereotypes of what a first person game is in order to make a fun Metroid game. Pacini said that Retro tried to design the games so that the only difficult parts would be boss battles and players would not be afraid to explore because, quote, the challenge of the game was finding your way around. Senior designer Mike Wicken said that the focus on the exploration led the team to spend time making the platform jumping approachable to the player, and to ensure the gameplay had shooting as a very important, though secondary, consideration. Retro developed the storyline under the supervision of Yoshio Sakamoto, who verified that the ideas were consistent with the earlier games. The developers intended that Kraid, a boss from Metroid and Super Metroid, would appear in Metroid Prime, and designer Jen Kohler modeled and skinned him for that purpose, but he was cut for time reasons. The team considered implementing the Speed Booster power-up from Super Metroid, but concluded it would not work well because of the first-person perspective and the limitations imposed by the scale of the game's environment. The first public appearance of the game was a 10-second video at Space World 2000. In November of the same year, Retro Studios confirmed its involvement with the game in the job application part of its website. In February 2001, the game was confirmed by Nintendo, which also announced that because of its emphasis on exploration, and despite the first-person perspective, Metroid Prime would be a first-person adventure rather than a first-person shooter. The game was showcased at E3 2001 in May, with its title confirmed as Metroid Prime. Audio. Kenji Yamamoto, assisted by Kojichi Kaimo, composed the music for Prime. The soundtrack contains arrangements of tracks from previous games in the series because Yamamoto wanted to satisfy old Metroid fans. The initial Talon Overworld theme is a reinterpretation of Metroid's Brinstar theme. The music heard in Magmore Caverns is a new version of the music from Super Metroid's Lower Norfair area, and the music heard during the fight with Meta Ridley is a fast-paced reimagining of the Ridley boss music first featured in Super Metroid, which also reappeared in most Metroid games since. Early in development, the English electronic duo Attature were asked by Retro Studios to compose the soundtrack, but this was halted by Nintendo. Tommy Tallarico Studios initially produced sound effects, but Miyamoto deemed them not good enough for an extended presentation at Space World 2001. The game supports Dolby Pro Logic 2 setups and can be played in surround sound. A soundtracked album, Metroid Prime and Fusion original soundtracks, were published by Citron on June 18, 2003. Game release. Metroid Prime was released for the Gamecube in North America on November 18, 2002. In 2003, the game arrived in Japan on February 28th and Europe on March 21st. In 2004, Nintendo released a Metroid Prime Gamecube bundle, including a second disc featuring a trailer and a demo for Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, a timeline of Metroid games, and an art gallery. Metroid Prime was re-released in Japan in 2009 for the Wii as part of the new Play Control series. It has improved controls that use the Wii remote's pointing functionality, bonus content, and the ability to take screenshots of gameplay. In other countries, this version was released in the Wii compilation Metroid Prime Trilogy. The compilation became available for download from the Wii U's Nintendo eShop in January of 2015. Remaster. Metroid Prime Remastered, a high-definition remaster for the Nintendo Switch, was released digitally on February 9, 2023, with a physical release on February 22nd in North America and March 3rd in Europe and Japan. The remaster was developed by Retro Studios with the assistance from developers including Iron Galaxy Studios. It features new visuals, updated control schemes, including an option for dual stick controls, and unlockable art. Metroid Prime Remastered received acclaim. Samuel Claiborne of IGN described it as a perfect example of how to both honor a lauded classic and bring it up to code. It was criticized for not crediting developers of previous versions of Metroid Prime by name, instead crediting them as, quote, original Nintendo Gamecube and Wii version development staff. Kinda harsh. As of March 2023, Metroid Prime Remastered has sold 1.09 million copies. Reception. Metroid Prime became one of the best-selling games on the GameCube. It was the second best-selling game of November 2002 in North America behind Grand Theft Auto Vice City. 250,000 units were sold in the first week of its release. As of July 2006, the game had sold more than 1.49 million copies in the US alone, and had earned more than $50 million US. It was also the 8th best-selling GameCube game in Australia. More than 78,000 copies were sold in Japan, and Nintendo added the game to its Player's Choice line in the PAL region. It sold 2.84 million copies worldwide, and was the best-selling Metroid game until Metroid Dread in 2021. Metroid Prime received universal acclaim according to Metacritic. The 3 reviewers in Electronic Gaming Monthly awarded it 3 10 out of 10 scores. It won numerous Game of the Year awards and was praised for its detailed graphics, special effects, varied environments, moody soundtrack and sound effects, level design, immersive atmosphere, and innovative gameplay centered on exploration, in contrast with action games such as Halo, while staying faithful to the Metroid formula. Criticisms include the unusual control scheme, lack of focus on the story, and repetitive backtracking. Game Informer considered the control scheme awkward. Entertainment Weekly compared the game to a 1990s arcade game filled with over-the-top battle sequences, spectacular visual effects, and a pretty weak plot. And GamePro wrote that the inexperienced players might find it exhausting to keep revisiting the same old places over and over and over. In 2004, the video game countdown show Filter said Metroid Prime had the best graphics of all time. During the 6th Annual Interactive Achievement Awards, the Academy for Interactive Arts and Sciences awarded Metroid Prime with Console First Person Action Game of the Year, It also received nominations for Game of the Year, Console Game of the Year, Outstanding Innovation in Console Gaming, and Outstanding Achievement in Art Direction, Game Design, Gameplay Engineering, Original Music Composition, Sound Design, and Visual Engineering. It was the most nominated game at the awards ceremony. Metroid Prime appeared on several lists of best games. It was ranked 23rd in IGN's Top 100, 29th in a 100 game list chosen by GameFAQs users, 18th in the official Nintendo Magazine's 2009 list of greatest Nintendo games, and 10th in Nintendo Power's Top 200 Nintendo games ever. IGN named Metroid Prime the best GameCube game, while GameSpy ranked it third in a similar list behind The Legend of Zelda, The Wind Waker, and Resident Evil 4. Nintendo Power also ranked Metroid Prime as the 6th best game of the 2000s. Wired ranked the game 10th in its list of the 15th most influential games of the decade for popularizing exploration, puzzle solving, platforming, and story among first-person shooters, saying that the game was breaking the genre free from the clutches of doom. Wired's writer continued that Metroid Prime took a massive stride forward for the first-person games. Metroid Prime also became popular among players for speedrunning. Specialized communities were formed to share these speed runs. Game Legacy. Metroid Prime was followed by Metroid Prime 2 Echoes in 2004 on the GameCube, and Metroid Prime 3 Corruption 2007 on the Wii. The first two games were re-released on the Wii as part of the new Play Control series in Japan and as part of the Wii compilation Metroid Prime Trilogy in 2009. A pinball game, Metroid Prime Pinball in 2005, and the action spin-offs Metroid Prime Hunters in 2006 were released for the handheld Nintendo DS console, and Metroid Prime Federation Force 2016 for the Nintendo 3DS. Metroid Prime 4 Beyond was released in 2025 for the Nintendo Switch and Nintendo Switch 2. Characters and stages from Metroid Prime have frequently appeared in other Nintendo games such as the Super Smash Bros. Series, in which the Frigate Orpheon is a playable stage, with the Parasite Queen in the background and music from Metroid Prime. Metroid Prime's gameplay and HUD have influenced other first-person shooters such as Geist and Star Wars Republic Commando. All information in the video today was provided by Wikipedia.